would only undermine the progress that's been made in Michigan over the last few years. On the other side of the aisle, critics of PA4 would like to repeal the law, arguing that this is a threat to collective bargaining and democracy. Many believe it's essentially stripping residents of their rights and representation, and the state government overstepping its bounds. Either way, it's been one of the most divisive and much debated topics here, and we have two people here to talk about both sides. Here to argue in favor of keeping PA4 is State Treasurer Andy Dillon and his counterpart, Brenda Lawerence, the mayor of Southfield, who will argue against it. Madam Mayor.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. The topic we're talking about is PA4, which is a very familiar conversation. Right now, the cities and the state of Michigan are in a financial crisis, and I think there's an agreement on both sides of that issue. The conversation of doing more with less has totally evaporated to be doing less with less. Our current policy, or our law that we have, PA4, is a reactive, not proactive policy. I view it, and many others view it, as a direct attack on our democracy, taking away the right of our citizens to elect their direct representatives. Under this law, when an emergency manager walks in, the requirements of Open Meetings Act disappears, because the emergency manager is not accountable to the people. He's accountable to an appointed state official, our treasurer. In addition to that, that person makes policy without input from the public. It has been a tradition in many cities, such as Ecorse, Benton Harbor, Flint, Pontiac, Allen Park, who's under a financial manager, that upon their arrival, they immediately tell all the elected officials that they are no longer welcome in City Hall, and they don't have an office. Some have been kicked out of their offices, and some, their salaries has immediately been discontinued. It is an arrogance that has been seen repeatedly in the role of the emergency manager. So the question is the PA4 a proactive or reactive policy that we have in place? Taking away our democracy and our right that when we pay tax dollars that's required by law to run our cities and our municipalities, that someone can come in without any accountability, without even the requirement to hear my concerns as a citizen and taxpayer, and to make decisions about my tax dollars. I firmly believe that that is an attack on my democracy. And for those who are in these cities who recognize, and I recognize as a mayor of a city, that we must balance our budget and we must make good fiscal responsible decisions with the tax dollars that are entrusted to us. And in some cities, ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. In my city, and I'm thankful that I have the revenue and I've had the practices to keep my city sound, I have foreclosures that are devaluing the property values in my home, as every city in Michigan. Not only do I have homes, I have commercial properties that businesses are walking away from. We have foreclosures. We have less revenue coming in as a result of that. We have less money, and so in addition to that, we have obligations that we have in every city. The largest segment of your budget is public safety. And that is the one that every city is struggling with right now publicly to maintain a quality of life in their city. I want to say a few more things before my time is up. Is that the current law that's in place, or PA4, one of the fundamental failures of that law is that in order to go in as an emergency manager in a city, you're not required to have any experience in municipal government. If a city is already in a crisis, And this person is being sent in to quote unquote save that city and to right the wrong of that city and their financial practices. Don't you think it would be a requirement that that person has experience in municipal government? And when they come in and totally stop the communication with all the institutional knowledge, it does not present itself to be an effective person. The other thing is that there are no benchmarks. When an emergency manager goes in, what are the benchmarks? What are the goals? What is the path to success? And when do you leave? Those are some fundamental questions every business person must have to have a successful plan. You have benchmarks that you can measure the success. And if I can use an example, it was Detroit Public Schools. A financial manager went in and there were not benchmarks or indicators of success. And lastly, to the credit of our treasurer, Andy Dillon, the consent agreement discussion that happened in Detroit, I thought was a breath of fresh air because it started changing the dynamic and the restrictions of that law. Although I don't agree totally with it, I was so encouraged that finally we're starting to look at how can we have an inclusive process. Thank you.